Hello, this is Bruno pelletier-bacquaert. So we are continuing today our little exploration on autumn leaves and the melody specifically of autumn leaves. And where I left you last time was with the A section. So the A section is repeated as is, except at the end we have a slightly different way to finish it. So let's see, if I were, I'll play both times. I'll play both A's and you'll see how similar they are. So that's first time, second time. And then now it ends up. So that figure is just a few, four notes? A, C, B flat, and then G. But I didn't do it on the one string. I did it on two adjacent strings. So I actually did this: 1, 4, 2, and then 4 with that G, with the string below. So there again, that little phrase, how, no matter how short it is, I can take that through different areas. So, but always keeping in mind the fingering that I'm using first. So here it started with the first finger. Fine, if I do it here, I'm also starting with my first finger, and it's going to be more or less the same thing. Just on that G, I'm using the third finger now instead of the fourth finger that I had here. But it's 1, 4, 2, and then 3 when I get the G on that third string. If I move down to the next string down, below the third string, so I'm going to play my A, still with my first finger. Now it's going to be down an octave, right? But that's the same phrase, more or less the same fingering. And I could take that through all different strings. So if I'm now on the next string down the fourth, I'm going to have this: A, C, B flat, G. Probably not going to go here, but we could if we are trying to explore and then just find the different ways. It's the same notes, and the guitar, the guitar is, it is complicated in some ways, right? But there are a lot of similarities. So even though you have all those different positions, different ways to play the same thing, once you have one, you could more or less retain the same fingering with slight variations here and there, but you can retain that same fingering in different places, and that's exactly what we did. See, each one of my phrases, I started with an A and my first finger, and that was the starting point for my entire phrase. Okay, so that's where the first section ends. So now the second part starts with an F sharp. That's the next phrase. So I could do the same thing again throughout my fretboard. So F sharp, G, A, and then D, A. So let me find that F sharp in different strings. Here it is, first finger. Okay. Here on the third string, first finger as well. And then I find the D. I have D, A, I have the fifth interval here. Down an octave here. Right? So I'm using that same principle throughout. So that B part has a few different phrases, but we don't really have the same obvious sequencing that we had in the first part. So let me just play. Let me play the whole B section. Okay, so that's going to be my B section, and I shifted areas because I had to see there's a rise and fall in that melody, starting really here with that B part. Keeps going up, and then I can't even sing how high it goes, right? So that's the basic shape of that part. It keeps wanting to go up, it wants to climax, and then it's gonna fall eventually. But I started it here, so that says kind of low on my fretboard, meaning, and I was going to have to go all the way up there. So we can climb our way through, or we could start somewhere higher up. Let's see. Let me find another fingering, because the way I was ending my A section previously, I was more like here in the middle. This is where I ended, right? So here I have an F sharp nearby, starting with my third finger, and then my D would be here, and then A is here, and then pretty much the whole melody is going to be in that position here. It's only when I have my big octave, if I play the F here, I have to jump all the way up there to get it. But I could play, so let me play that again in time. 1, 2, okay. So I started that with my third finger on the second string. Let me find another F sharp, next string down, but still more or less the same fingering. Here I think it would be with the second finger instead of the third, just because that position is organized that way. See, all that is the same, and then now I have access to my complete octave without having to jump. So start on this F sharp or this F sharp. We could start with the third finger, but here it's a bit cumbersome, because the first finger is just staring at the other fingers and not doing anything. So here it's more logical to use the second finger. And then my big octave at the end here. Okay, next F sharp. Now this one would be a third finger. And then my octave, I'll find it here between the fourth and second string. Right? I could probably do that again, but now I'm really low, and it's very dark sounding because I'm only using wound strings. And then my F octave is going to be here. Okay, so that was the B section. You can probably find a couple other ways, but those are the obvious ones that we can find throughout the fingering. So let me kind of go back here. Sort of rubato. So now we have a little chromatic thing. So I'm doing it pretty much in the same position. The rest of it, we probably shouldn't even spend that much time working on it in this video, because I think you get the idea. You could find different ways, kind of working your way in a logical manner throughout your fretboard, and then keep finding your melodies. And then it's what G to C, ooh, baby, ooh, baby, and then it ends with the tonic. So at that point, doesn't really matter where you can play it. You can sort of go by ear. So the few important things that we need to remember about this melody was primarily the sequences on the A section. Then the fact that the second half of the song, starting with the B part, we have all those little fragments of melody that we can play in different places all over the fretboard, and we should really spend the time to explore and find all those different ways, and ultimately just remember that whole melody as a whole, because you know what, that melody is going to be a lifesaver when we get to improvise on this song. If you strongly rely on the melody, you are not going to get lost. And I know for a fact, I mean, when I remember working on this song, when I was just starting off with improvisation, guaranteed I would get lost on this tune. It's not harmonically very difficult. It stays more or less in the same key, major and minor. It bounces back and forth between the relative major and minor, but you find the same chords. You look at the chart, it's the same chords that keep coming around. So harmonically, there's not a whole lot going on, but it's a long form, and those chords keep coming around in odd ways, right? So they do make a lot of sense with the melody, but without the melody, it's hard to really relate to them. So if you strongly hear the melody, the rise and fall of that melody, and that's something that's worth really being aware of, like starting with the second half, keeps going at, again it goes, and then it comes back down, and then it makes an attempt to go up again, and then it goes down, and then that's the end of it. Closure, and we're done. So if you're aware of that shape, and also, but we'll talk about that more in details when we get to improvise with the melody. You'll see how helpful that is. So do spend a good amount of time on that melody. It is time well spent, guaranteed. Okay, so we'll continue. There'll be probably maybe I don't know, maybe another 2 videos or so on Autumn Leaves. I'll take you through some of the chords, the chord tones, and then we'll just improvise and see what else there is. There's actually a lot on that song, right? Okay. Bye.